Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third session of Beyond Status Quo. And today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. A.G. Danish. And before we get into conversation with him, just wanted to, recap the last week's sessions we had. We talked about the macro trends of what's happening right now globally with COVID. And we also had a look around how different stakeholders in the economic ecosystem, like corporate, government, non-profit, trade chambers, they can all come together and sort of, help in this moment. But we left out a very important aspect last week, which was academia, which we're going to cover today. And if you recollect, we also talked about a very important sector of the industry, which was real estate and infrastructure, which we discussed in many ways is a key indicator or lead indicator of how the economy is faring overall. For today's session, we're going to focus on yet another important aspect of the society. Amongst whatever is happening right now, you must have read the biggest concern people are having is that a lot of people might be out of jobs. That's the biggest outcome of whatever is happening right now. If the economy goes down, companies start to shrink, the ultimate outcome for people like you and me would be that there would be less work uh, for the same level of skill we had, and there would be lesser jobs, which also percolates down to the education system in the school. That what kind of education are we giving to our students right now? So when they graduate in next 5, 7, 8 years, would they have any clarity on, you know, how relevant are their skills and would their skills be employable enough? And you would agree that even as professionals, or ordinary professionals, I mean, I can count on myself that there has never been a increased focus than ever before to upskill and reskill yourself. The companies under cost constraints and pressures are going to be looking for people who can wear multiple hats, who can do multiple roles. And technologies like artificial intelligence, IoT, augmented virtual reality are making it much easier for companies to work with lesser staff and use these tools and technologies to achieve scale and optimize their costs. So there's going to be an extreme pressure on all of us to upskill and reskill ourselves. And in fact, many of the people I know are actually using this time to getting themselves, upskilled. But then the question is also to what kind of skills would be required? What upskilling and reskilling tools are there? So there's a lot of chaos. And while we do this, there is a increased pressure on teachers, on schools to actually run and provide online and remote education. For many of the teachers and students, this is the first time in their life that they are actually, either teaching or learning in a completely online mode. Till now, online was always a supplemental mode, but now it's the online only education, which is a paradigm, shift from the conventional education we're all gone up and being groomed in, and which also sort of, makes us sort of wonder and pause that what's going to happen in the future if this kind of social distancing norms continue. You cannot have education in a conventional way where in a classroom you had 60 students being in one classroom packed like the ones we had. That would be impossible to continue, right? So how would that evolve? So I think in all of these questions we are almost looking for somebody to help us and guide us through these mists of cloud, that how the future is going to unfold for the education and skilling industry broadly. And who better than our speaker today to sort of help us and like an angel pat on our back to tell us that everything is going to be okay, and he's going to show us the light of at the end of the tunnel. Just to give you a brief profile about our speaker, A.G. Danish. It's a very, I am personally very enamored by his tagline, which is that A.G. Danish is a rolling stone who has chosen to gather no moss through his journey. It's almost like a right off the bat from a poem from Robert Dahl and the likes. He is a visiting faculty at London School of Business, which is an extremely prestigious global school, and also at University of Cambridge, one of the oldest universities in the world. He is also associated in his current role as CEO of IdeaPort in terms of mentoring and advising Indian schools, Indian curriculum schools in Saudi Arabia. So he's got that mix of, the roots of Indian curriculum education, but he also understands the Middle Eastern market and broadly how dynamics are in that space. he has also taken up the profession and the art of storytelling, which I personally believe that the art of storytelling and creativity would be two skills that would be extremely important for our young children in the age of AI and all these emerging technologies. Howsoever technology may evolve, if I mean creativity, storytelling, and empathy to an extent are something which machines can never replace humans on. The guy is bang on that. He has the art of storytelling, and I'm sure he's going to mesmerize us with his art of storytelling in today's session. So I'm going to hand over to my co-host Sushma Mathur, who's going to start a conversation with Danish on some of these aspects. So over to you, Sushma.
Thank you, Karthik, and thanks a lot for setting the context. A warm welcome, Danishji.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Welcome to Beyond Co. I mean, Karthik has actually rightly, summarized the overall issues which everybody is facing in today's state. To be specific, and before we get into the impact of COVID on education system, if you could just give a broad overview of the Indian schools standing in Saudi Arabia as to how they are governed and managed, so that everybody has an overview.
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interact with you all. The Indian schools in Saudi Arabia, there are two types of schools. One are the private schools and the other one are the community schools. My involvement is with the community schools. We have got about 10 of them in Saudi Arabia, and we have 44,000 plus. And I think with this, with the kind of situation, the economic situation, which was already seeing a nosedive, we are expecting about 10% of the students to be going back to India, because many parents have started thinking it. But then thanks to COVID, the international borders are closed. Indian borders are closed, no flights coming in, no flights going out, and vice versa. Kingdom took all these measures around the 5th of March, and they made sure all those pilgrims who were here, they were sent back. We were conducting these exams, the board exams, and those board exams got cancelled in Saudi Arabia because the Ministry of Education has said that there cannot be any gathering of students and all that. So fine, all those things were there. Yes, these are 10 schools. Right now, I must give credit to the teaching community, specifically teaching community across India. We are not used to it. I mean, let's face it, we are not used to these video conferences. Even though all these facilities were available, I don't think so you and I were ever using it. We were better off picking up the phone and talking to each other. Suddenly, all my teachers, and when I say my teachers, I'm owning it up, because I feel you want to own up good things in life. So all my teachers have literally pulled up their proverbial socks, and they are doing a fabulous job. And unfortunately for the parent community, they do not understand this. So we have all these kind of things. Okay, sir, there is no education that's happening, so therefore there has to be fees reduction and all those kind of things. So the ambassador of India took a decision that okay, only tuition fees will be charged, no library fee, no sports fee, no this, no that, all those kind of things were there. But the sad part is that the efforts that are being put by the teachers in doing these e-classes is not all that recognized, is not being acknowledged the way it should be. Because now see, you have to prepare the lessons, you have to take the classes, then you also have to report the classes, and then you have to get ready for the next class.
That's true, because everybody is not used to it. So of course, in teachers, students, principals, I think everybody, administration, including administration, will take time to get accustomed to it.
Well, I would say that they have picked up the gauntlet, and they're doing it very well with whatever. Yesterday, I was reading a ruling by the Delhi High Court, saying that, listen, I mean, you don't even understand what e-education is, so kindly don't ask for reduction of fees. So I think it's been very well worded.
Correct. Yesterday only that Delhi High Court.
Yes, I saw it. So that's the reason. It was so apt in.
No, so you rightly put it. So everybody emphasizes on the education. But I mean, this question personally bothers me: that should primary education be made mandatory? So according to an estimate by UNICEF, in 2015, over 115 million children, they did not attend to primary school. So of course, although the figures would have dropped down by now, however, it is still one of the main concerns of various international bodies. So, how do you think we can achieve universal primary education? At least primary education should be, made available to everybody. And I mean, you think that it should be made mandatory because today's date it is not mandatory.
I, I mean, without getting into the history or the reasons behind all these international bodies coming together or the conditions. I mean, now let's just concentrate on the Indian conditions. Yes, we used to have these problems, but I think yes, the basic education needs to be there. That is when I would bring in Karthik's point, that that's where the students would be able to look at their creativity, would be able to look or to open up their minds, because if they are not able to do that, then we have a problem at hand. We
Correct.
should be having it.
Correct.
Unfortunately, in India, I would say that we are still following the British old system, by which we just want to, we have a certain basic thing, and there are schools which are following different models also, and I'm sure the results are there for everybody to see. But yes, a policy decision should be taken that it should be mandatory or there. I mean, India is a huge country. Let's face it. India is a huge country. In order to be able to provide education to everybody, we need lot of infrastructure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I read it somewhere. So there was a statement from WHO day before yesterday that coronavirus pandemic is far from over. So even if the government and the administration allows the schools to operate, parents would not like to take that risk, of exposing their kids. So do you feel online schooling will completely substitute traditional school system, and whether it should be done?
Going by the old tradition of Pathshala and all those kind of things, it will take us a lot of time to admit that online education is the new thing. It is, it's a complete reboot now in our philosophy, in our ways of life. The school sizes of the classrooms. Earlier, we were allowed to sit, let's say, 30 students. Now, with this new situation, we are only allowed to have 15 students, let's say, in a class. Now the teacher is going to be exposed, the students are going to be exposed, so all these things are there. So therefore online is the thing. Yes, education will quote unquote suffer in the traditional sense of the word, but then here, just look at it, there are videos which are available. If I missed a class, here I have an advantage of going back to the videos and relearning it. But
Right.
yes, the university education system will suffer a lot, because that is where you had to have interactions, you had to have group discussions, you had to have one-to-one, you have to have sit down together and all those kind of things. So that is definitely going to suffer, because with the advent of technology, we will have these issues.
Yeah, so to extend it, what should be done according to you to inculcate creativity in young people, and how to prepare them for future? Because as you rightly said, that everything would be artificial, AI will have everything have straightforward answer for questions. So what should be done to keep that creativity
I think we will
alive?
have to come out with ways and means. There is no right or wrong answer in this, because as I always believe, uh, there are no right answers and there are no wrong answers, especially for a situation like this, for which we do not have any historical parameter to measure. I mean, okay, way back in 1920 we had a crash, so the business model was working, that okay, these are the kind of things that work, these are the things that did not work. Now here we do not even know what the enemy is all about. We don't know what the enemy is all about. We don't know what we are up against. So as long as we are able to bring out, uh, or let's say we'll have to involve the students, we'll have to involve the entire, all the stakeholders, then only the creativity would come in. Because so far in our rotary model, there was only one way flow of information, which was coming from the teacher. Once in a while, or maybe 5 times in a classroom, you would have question and answer session. But now I think the students have got a greater role to flower themselves. They need to come out, and the teaching community will have to come out with more and more creative ways to bring out the students.
Sure.
It's a complete reboot. It's a complete reboot, and there are no fixed things which would say that, okay, we need to have, okay, this is what is going to work. What could have worked in Denmark may not work in Saudi Arabia. What works in Saudi Arabia may not work in India. But one thing is there, that the education system, the governments of the day will have to start looking at television channels. When I say television channels, meaning dedicated education television channels, that in a situation of a curfew, in a situation of lockdown, or in any of these uh, uncertainties, at least the education will continue. Saudi Arabia
Yes,
that way
sure.
had I would say that had a head start with most of the other countries, that it already had a, a channel. So they
Okay.
hit the ground from the day one the university was closed. So they did not have any problems at all. They just had to go to tape number 328, and we were there in the class.
Okay. Okay. No, no. India, of course, will take a longer time to
Yeah,
come to.
because we have of net speed. I mean, what do you do? I mean, you cannot have these on a 2G platform. It is impossible to have have these video calls or have these any of these education classes. So
Absolutely. So, fine. And what is your take about the future of emerging technologies such as intelligence? So, do you use the same in your jurisdiction? Although you said that, but to what
I
extent you
think
use
now
AI?
AI would be see, in these newer technologies will have to be now imbibed. They will have to be immediately labbed up, and people will have to keep on experimenting with them. Karthik is a AI expert, and I think he would be in a better position to answer this. But I know of it, it is okay. Now it is not going to be survival of the fittest. Darwin is history now. Now it will be the survival of the quickest. I mean, person who is able to take quick decisions. Rebranding. Rebranding. I'm coming back into my advertising fold. Everybody will have to rebrand. Every school will have to rebrand for me to say, okay, I am different, and therefore, you need to send your child to my place. So
True.
it has to be survival. That's what you're saying about the set skills. I've been an advertising. I don't know what else to do. So today I'm jobless because now there is no outdoor advertising that's happening. There's nothing that's happening. Now, if I had done some coding, if I had done some of those things, then maybe I could have. I can think of having a job tomorrow of being a designer or something. Now here I had a whole team of designers whom I would tell them what to do. But what do I do now? So it has to be the quickest. Uh, the skill sets have to suddenly become broad based.
Absolutely. So, since we have an expert AI person here with us, so Karthik, I would like to request you to build on that.
No, I mean, from what I believe, and I'm in no way an expert on AI, I'm more like an enthusiast. My sense has been that a lot of schools are actually trying to use AI for either, personalizing education for students, because now is a good opportunity for students to not be studying in a cookie cutter model where the teacher is teaching the same thing. Here is an opportunity for students to consume the content created by the teachers, but then also consume them in a way which they like it the best. Like some people are auditory learners, some like it visually, some are kinesthetic learners. So that sort of customization and personalization, and also putting in the adaptive layer of assessment, which was so difficult to do in a traditional classroom. I think some of those things are becoming more relevant, and that's where I see the best use of AI. And not to mention to use things like bots which can act as a facilitator. So sometimes like nowadays students want 24/7 support, and when they are learning something, they have a doubt at an odd hour in the night. Teacher may not be available, but if teachers have contributed to that knowledge resource pool, I mean, which AI or machine learning can tap onto, and then also create a question, sort of an answer real time to support the students. I think that sort of a thing are some of the use cases which I am thinking can be used. We also have some school owners here from Silverline Prestige School, Naman Jain, Sachin Vets from the Gurukul School, and other school owners as well. I'm more than happy to also, have them. If you have any questions, guys, just let me know. I'll unmute you. And I think I have a question from Pratibha Ganesh Nair as well, but we'll probably take it up towards the end. Sushma, over to you to have
Karthik,
further conversation.
yeah, so in any case, we are running short of time, so I hand over the conversation back to you. You can just lead it.
Okay, sure. So we'll take up questions. I think the best course of path is to take up questions from audience. So we got a question where Pratibha Ganesh Nair was asking that how the e-learning is going to affect the overall development of the student. I think it's very important, and basically she's referring to the point of the emotional quotient of the students, which is so very important now. I mean, traditional schooling, as we know, not only prepares you for a high IQ, but the whole environment of working with your peers, playing in the playground together as a team, and doing other extracurricular activities, actually help you sort of shape your overall personality. That sort of a thing is now missing in a virtual world. So, he wants to understand that how that sort of a simulated environment can be done in a virtual mode, and how we can still help students in you know, shaping up their emotional quotient.
Karthik, if I may try to answer this question in a way, but see, 3 months down the line, or even till about last month, we had not thought that today we would be having this video call or
Right.
the Zoom call. Not that this technology was not available. So same thing was there for e-education also. E-education was always there, but as Sushma mentioned, that we would always look at it as a second kind of a thing, or a correspondence
Right.
wala case. But
Right.
now this is the new norm. This is the new norm. The parents will have to accept it. The important, not only the students, we need to find teachers who are also able to lap up this technology and come up to the expectations. So now gone are the days when you would just write on the blackboard, say 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, because anyway somebody would be writing 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. How do you generate that interest among all the students to be there, to be together? It is important. So yes, we will have to look at the way of looking at engaging not only the teachers but also the students. And at the same time, if there is a lockdown that continues, suddenly you now the parents are also seeing paper that when he writes a headline, I also come and say, nahi yaar, headline mein maza nahi aa raha, we are not enjoying the headline. I'm not in a position to do it. So everybody has an opinion now. So I think over a period of time, we will all have to evolve. Yes, the security, the safety of the child is important. So as you rightly mentioned, that in this situation, will the parents try to send their child? I don't think so. Personally, I would not like to send my child right now to any school or any college till the time there is
Right.
a paracetamol kind of a vaccine which is available. I mean, way back in, not very far away, in the World War II, World War I, we had a problem of chloroquine. Now you and I don't even bother to even go to a doctor. We just go and say, okay, fine, give me a paracetamol or chloroquine, and you're on with life.
Right. In fact, a very interesting point has been raised by one of the audience members, is that, in businesses, we all talk about globalization, right? And people coming together on a single platform. How does that translate into a potential model for education where students from different schools, different organizations can be on a single platform? Because now you don't need to travel to do exchange programs and those kind of things. So is there a merit in exploring such a model where people from different organizations can come onto a single knowledge platform and they can share their ideas and collaborate?
I think that will be the strategy for the future. Probably one will have to relook, and the entire education ministry will have to relook at seeing how best the standardization of the course can be done, so that things could be there. Otherwise, right now in India, we have as many number of states, as many number of boards, and the skill levels are roughly the same or a slightly higher or a bit better. But yes, this is even from an international perspective, this is needed. And mind it, India has been providing the science, maths, and all those kind of things for so many schools in the US, UK. They have been providing. It's not that. So India is much more very well prepared. There are so many organizations who are working out, and they are doing a great job.
And related to this, I have a personal question: that how do you think the whole market of international mobility is going to pan out? Like, as you mentioned, a lot of people in Saudi Arabia are also planning to go back to their native home. Same situation I'm hearing in the US and UK and Australia. Even Jack would be hearing it in Australia. That a lot of people are now feeling more comfortable to go back to their native countries and homes. And how do you see the overall international student market is going to evolve over the next 2-3 years?
Well, let me put it this way. If I was paying 21,000 odd pounds for a 1-year course in the UK, where if my daughter is supposed to be confined to her room and take the classes, then I think I've got a reason to say, what the hell am I spending? And this is exactly, I'm talking from a personal perspective. My daughter is right now in the University of Portsmouth. She's doing her research there. And now from the last, since the time whatever this has happened, she's there confined in a room. So what exactly am I paying the fees for? So, I mean, where is that interaction and all those kind of things which are there? So I think the whole, it will have to be, as I said earlier, I'm using the word reboot, reshift, paradigm shift, and all those kind of shifts are going to come around. And by the time a model comes out, a feasible model comes out, maybe we would have the vaccine and we would be all back onto the same square one.
Well said.
Yeah, but I think these are important questions that need to be answered. And there are no answers for these. There are no specific answers that, okay, this is the right and this is...
There's speculations and theories.
Yeah, speculation.
Say,
see, after 9/11, if you remembered, there was a spike in the luxury items that were bought. Right. I mean, one would have thought, this is not going to happen. But then people said, okay, fine, damn it. We have got only one life, so let's live too. But here we don't even know what the enemy is all about. You're afraid to even open the door and receive a courier packet.
Right.
A courier packet comes, you leave it out for 24 hours, Dettol spray and all those kind of things. I mean, these are things we never heard of. I mean, our culture says, okay, we need to wash our hands, we need to wash our feet, we are used to it. Okay, now suddenly this has found a new meaning.
Yeah, agree. And we've got a question from one of the school owners, Naman Jain. Naman, do you want to, ask it yourself? I'll just unmute you.
Yeah.
Hi. You're unmuted, Naman.
It's so good to see all of you this afternoon. I think a lot of interesting points have been raised here. One of the biggest questions I wanted to bring about is, for example, in the situation, if COVID-19 lasts longer than the anticipated period of 2 or 3 months, let's say if it goes on to a year, then what would that model be? Because obviously the schools will open, the businesses will open, people will start moving, they will start moving around, but to a limited extent. What would that blended model be? That is question number one. Second question, which came to my head, was you mentioned a very important point about the experience that the academic institutions, educational institutions bring to the child. For example, your daughter who's studying in a university in the UK, it is not just the academics she's paying for, it is the entire experience she's paying for. So the bigger question is, how do you build these other experiences in online schooling? That's the bigger question. Academic can easily be done. We've all been there, done that. A lot of schools have actually implemented it. The question is, how do you build the other things in online? Thank you.
If I may try to answer, yes, this new model of education will have to change completely. We'll have to revisit. There is no substitute for a one-to-one interaction. There is no substitute for that. I'm so craving to shake hands with my friend. I'm so craving to hug him, but I cannot do it now. But yes, this will be a problem, and I think slowly we will evolve. Slowly we will realize the fact that some of these things are going to be missing. Experience part, as you rightly mentioned, the overall environment part, that is something that we would be missing. And now suddenly the value shifts, the values are going to shift. The values are going to shift. We also have so many online degrees which are happening from so many Indian universities. We don't take those Indian degrees from Indian universities. We go on the Coursera or this the website and all that, and we try to get degrees from the other one because we look at the different perspective. So maybe as this discussion was moving on, the international experiences could possibly come in, and we could pick up from there. So right now there are no answers for this, and I think slowly you and I, all of us, will evolve into reaching that point. and maybe in the next 3 months or something. But I think most of the universities in the US and all, they are all planning for 2021. No more admissions, and if at all admissions are going to be there, I think they will have to come down heavily on their existing teaching models of online education. Yeah. I don't know whether I've been able to answer that question, because I do not have this answer. Even I'm searching for that.
So we also have with us Sachin Watt, who is again a school owner. He runs a school, the Gurukul. Sachin, go ahead. You had a question.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Sachin.
Unfortunately, my video has some technical glitch. And as I've heard over a few webinars, that how difficult sometimes it appears who face these difficulties when they're conducting such sessions is like, so I'm facing the same. So, hello, Mr. Danish.
Hi, Sachin. How are you?
Amazing insights you have given. So I have just one or two questions, one from the school's perspective and probably one from the teacher's perspective. Like as a school promoter, I see in this new normal, probably once the teachers are equipped with this new technology and this interface, till some time back they were probably not thinking about all this thing, but now they had no choice and they had to do it. So India faces a big challenge of retention of teachers and finding good teachers. So do you see a probability where these teachers probably may find that there is no point doing a full-time job and switch over to online teaching, and probably that way the already existing problem of finding good teacher and retention could be a challenge for schools?
Getting the right teacher, getting the right mix of the teacher, getting the perfect teacher is always a challenge for the school, and how you are able to retain him or her is always a problem. Now, I think most of these teachers would have found out that this is going to be the future. So they would be preparing their own videos. They would have their own, suddenly you will find a lot of YouTube channels coming in. You will find a lot of these websites. So just like you do tuitions, coming back to the very controversial aspect of tuitions, you will find that many of these teachers would be having their own videos uploaded. Schools will have to find ways and means to retain talent. There are two things. One, I may be a very good communicator, but I may be very conscious of the camera. So we are having problems. There are many teachers in Saudi Arabia who practice hijab. So they cover their face. So now it's very difficult for them to suddenly come on camera. Mm-hmm. So we tell them, okay, you do not have to be necessarily on the camera. Make sure as long as your audio is visible, nobody's asking. But then where is that the eye contact? The eye contact with the students is something which even the teachers are missing. The teachers are missing. I mean, I remember I was in a Zoom class. It was an Urdu poetry class, and I found it to be very boring, whereas I know that the teacher there was very good at his subject. So then he says that now I'm going to come on video, because I was very conscious of it. And when he started coming on video, of course, he had a very good skyline and a beach as a background, just as Karthik has. And you know, the facial expressions and all those kind of things, they added to the lecture. So everybody will have to reboot. Everybody will have to relook at how this new education system is going to be. I hope that it finishes in 2 months' time, 3 months' time. Personally, I'm a little pessimistic on this. I think we are in for a long haul.
Thank you so very much.
Thanks a lot.
I think it was relevant. Now, my second question is related to the teachers. Now, what is happening, because they were not used to this kind of a system, and you rightly mentioned that somebody becomes camera conscious, somebody has a fear because the school is now reaching out to the house of every child, and parents might be sitting and the family members might be sitting. So sometimes you have a very diverse kind of a parents community, and they become very judgmental about the teaching learning process. So they probably form opinion, and rather than clarifying it from the teachers directly, they try and prefer venting out their emotions through social media. And that creates a big problem. And this teachers get demotivated, and she has her own story and a clarification and justification to share, but nobody listens to us. And then, you know, the authorities in the school and the management and the principal and everybody's after her life. So what is your take on this?
We are also facing the same problems. Earlier, all those parents who did not even bother to come for the PTMs, now suddenly they are all over the world on different WhatsApp groups, on social media, saying, you know, how the video quality was bad and all those kind of things. Let's face it, suddenly there is a curfew. You do not even have a, let's say, a laptop at home. You are taking a 40 minutes or 50 minutes class from your mobile phone, which could necessarily does not be the latest. So the telephone is heating, but still the teacher is taking those classes. So they do not look at that. They are very judgmental, and I think they will continue to be judgmental no matter what. Even if you are able to uh, sanitize the whole teacher, drop each and every teacher in their house by a helicopter, they would still be judgmental. They will say, ye kapde kyun pehen ke aayi thi, is time pe kyun aayi thi. So all those kind of things are there. I think as school promoters, as educators, and people who are in the business of education, we are all used to it. There's no you cannot satisfy them all, but I think still 95% of the people are very satisfied with the kind of education that is being given to them, and it's happening. So there are no answer. There's no fixed answer for that.
I absolutely.
But that's one of the points, Danish, of this whole conversation, that sometimes we just want to share our ideas and thoughts and resonate with others. I mean, nobody's actually looking for prescribed perfect answers, but it sometimes feels good to just get it off your chest and figure out that everybody else is also in the same
on the
boat.
Same boat, yeah.
And this also acts like a good emotional support group. I think Naman has again raised his hand.
Yes, I see Naman.
So to answer Sachin's question, I think obviously, it is very difficult to satisfy the parent community. But obviously, as Mr. Danish initially mentioned, that suddenly the parents have also entered the classrooms. Earlier, the child and the teacher were in the classroom, and now the parent is able to see everything. It's more than necessary now that we are hand holding our teachers properly. So, for example, in our schools, in Silverline Prestige schools, what we have been successfully be able to do, rather than just pushing them onto into the water, the teachers, we hand held them properly. Just a small example. When you do a Zoom call or a Meet call, when you're dealing with young children, all of them will start saying, ma'am, and if everybody unmutes themselves, the entire session becomes a havoc. The teachers have to be taught how to handle online school. It is a different ball game. It is a completely new game. So you have to train them. You can't expect a teacher who's been teaching for 25 years to suddenly take up the technology in one night. You have to handhold them. You have to train them with proper professionals, and that's how you go about it. And I'm very proud to say that we as schools have been able to gain a lot of success. Ultimately, the quality of the teaching that has to happen, that must go on. I got a particular feedback from one of my parents saying that her child was usually the backbencher in grade 3 and grade 4, because that child had attention deficiency. He did not like using chalk and talk. But now suddenly the teachers are doing such a great work, creating presentations, showing videos, using Nearpod, using all these online tools. The child is enjoying education so much that he's gained a lot more. In my context, in my school's context, we have been able to cover 25% of the syllabus already in past 1 month. It is faster than regular school. So it is all about how you deal with the problem, how you handhold your teachers, and that's how you have to come up with. I completely support Mr. Danish, what he said earlier about completely staying on the toes, being ahead of the times, and talking about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Naman. Thanks for
a lot.
sharing your views. I'm sure it was very helpful, Sachin. So, guys, we're extremely out of time. We're already overshot by 10-15 minutes. So it's been a really interesting and engaging session. Just to, sort of conclude our learning. So, we all sort of understood that these are unprecedented times in terms of how we have to conduct learning online. We also discussed about various stakeholders' concern in terms of how teachers have stepped up the game and schools are putting in energies and efforts to train them, upskill them. But at the same time, there are issues around parents not being able to appreciate it enough and recognize those efforts, and not being able to support in that cause. We also talked about fee rationalization initiatives being done in the Middle East region. And Danish talked about how conventional skills, he took an example of advertisement, that how it is completely changed when you cannot go outside and there are no billboards to look at, and how we need to continuously upskill ourselves in this new era, and the conventional professions need to be reinvented and transformed, and how schools in the future, given that this lockdown and some norms of social distancing may continue, how schools and teachers will need to prepare themselves for an online world. We also heard some interesting perspectives from school owners like Naman and Sachin in terms of how they are handling these issues in their schools, and how I'm amazed to hear from Naman that how they're able to actually, cover their syllabus faster, and it's got a lot of benefits as well. This whole model of e-learning, and if we are able to address the issues and constraints of online learning, it can actually be a much more bigger, faster, more scalable model in which you can teach a lot of students in a personalized manner, yet concurrently. So it could be a game changer in many ways. With this, I'm going to thank Mr. Danish for coming to our session and spending time with us. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. Sushma, do you have any closing remarks?
Just would like to thank Danish ji for being with us, and of course, special thanks to Sachin, Naman, KTSG, and everybody else who spared their valuable time with us. Hope the session was useful to everybody. Look forward to our next session. We'll share the details soon. Stay tuned.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Stay safe. Stay at home. Take care.